Hello and welcome to The Good, the Scaz and the Rugby in partnership with our friends at Allianz. We're all in our respective homes again this week. The dream team alongside me, as usual, Scaz and Tinds. How are you both doing? Let's start with you, Emily.
Yeah, good, thank you. Obviously was down at the Stoop last weekend to see another great win for the girls. So yeah, had a good week, thank you.
No, so for me, I was at the Australia game, trying to catch up on all the other games. Casual Sunday, took Mia to rugby. Actually, literally, what is it? It's so hard to get her to rugby. I don't want to go. Don't like it. Don't do rugby anymore. And you get her down there, and at the end of it, she's like, "I need all the kit. Can you buy me the top? Can you buy me the shorts? Can you buy me the socks?" I'm like, "I thought you didn't want to come earlier." So, yeah, that was good on down at Minch on Sunday. And then I played last night, which was not enjoyable. But so I'm feeling a little bit ropey today. But
Proper rugby?
Well, I didn't think it was supposed to be. But it turns out, we had a Rugby for Heroes charity game against basically the Combined Armed Forces and their full team, which have got semi-professionals in, 25-year-olds in. And at 43, I've realised I don't have it. Definitely don't have it. All the dreams that you think, I can still do it. You can't. You can't. They're fitter, they're faster, and probably and stronger too. So yeah, we lost. We went down fighting 60 points to 33. But I think they got 5 interceptions because we were just throwing balls over the top. They played with structure. Who plays with structure? Yeah, so it was disappointing, but... at least it was charity, mate. Charity.
And as long as you left without any major injuries, I mean, it looks like your collarbone is still intact, everything else still fine.
Yeah, I'm missing. It was on Gloucester's 3G pitch, so I'm missing quite a lot of skin on my legs. But apart from that, apart from my trousers and my sticking to my legs as the open wounds below, otherwise all good.
Can we take a moment for the fact that I was in the Aviva Stadium for that big win that Ireland scored over New Zealand, and that is why I'm wearing green. It's not to give you extra gears ahead of this weekend, Mike. Congratulations to Ireland's men's team on that big result. It was insane. The atmosphere in Dublin on Saturday was something to behold, and it was obviously a packed house, and it's just been so good to see the number of fans going out to matches. We also had loads of fans out at the Stoop, which was great to see. 3 weeks in a row, the Red Roses absolutely rampant, throngs supporting them, loads of... I just love when the TV cameras cut to the sideline and you see so many young girls standing there waiting to get an autograph or a selfie with the player. This week, they backed those 2 wins over the Black Ferns up with a win over third-ranked Canada. A little more labouring, but we'll get into that shortly. Ahead of the final round of the Autumn Nations Games, Simon Middleton, our guest from last week, if you didn't watch it, go back because you missed out, has released some of the big names from the camp, including our guest today. She's a Grand Slam winner, a World Cup winner, a qualified plumber, and an absolute legend. Marlie Packer is here on The Good, the Scaz and the Rugby. Welcome, Marlie.
Woo. Hi guys, thank you for having me.
Marlie, I've got a problem. One of my pipes is burst in a barn I've got over there. Whenever you're available, if you could come and sort it out for me, that'd be great.
She's expensive, mind.
I'm expensive and I'm not available often.
Sorry, is that a normal plumber line? I'm expensive and not available.
No, we usually say, we'll be here at this time and then just never turn up. So at least I'm being honest.
So has it been good to be home a bit?
Oh yeah, so I got released on Monday, so to come home, I didn't think I'd get released until Thursday because I think I kind of knew I wasn't going to be available, be up for selection for this week. So to come home a few days earlier and be with Tash and Oliver, it's been lovely. So, that I think that's very changed in my life, is that actually when I come home, I've got a little family to come home to. So even though it's disappointed about selection, actually, that there's still lots of things coming home to.
Was that
so
him?
Today today after the show, I'm actually going to Bird World with Oliver and Tash. So exciting!
Was that him that we just heard in the background screaming his head off?
Yeah, he's actually upstairs, so I do apologise if you do hear him.
Don't worry, Marlie. Generally, you'll hear my kids most of the time on any riverside that we do from home. I think my little boy's out for a walk, so but you'll hear him when he comes back unless he's asleep.
Oh, cute, perfect.
And is he old enough to really be happy about you coming home, or is it just like, oh, she's here now, please can I have a snack?
No, like you do see that little smile on his face, but yeah, as soon as I walk through the door, it's oh, come play with me, mummy. He doesn't quite say it, but I get he's got these blocks at the moment and they get thrown at me or down the stairs, so yeah, you can definitely tell he wants to play.
So what was camp like? What's everyone been up to? I saw videos yesterday on, I think it was Shauna Brown's Instagram, of Maud Mia trying to show off how well she can move her nostrils. I'm not sure like how successful that is. But I was a bit tickled as to what the current trend is in camp with the Red Roses. Everyone seems to really just be having a lot of silly fun.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We're in camp together for a lot of time. We've only been released for 24 hours after the 2 New Zealand games. So actually having a bit of light-hearted fun. Some of it I might not put on social media, but other people do. Blaring your nostrils ain't my thing. But like I think we just got to keep it light-hearted. Like when we're on the job, we're in training, we're on it. But when we've got some downtime, it's about connecting with players. Like Shauna Brown and Maud Moore play for 2 different teams, so it's actually like it's good to see them interacting with each other. Just having a bit of fun, really. What
was the crack with all the balloons? Heard about Sunta's giraffe balloon or something?
Yeah. So basically, McKenna, Sarah McKenna, she does like CTW, which is like a compete to win kind of teams, and we all get put in teams and do different challenges. But this tour, she's also turned into a bit of a social sect as well. So just like at different meal times or in evenings, she'll come with some random thing that we have to do. So after the game this week, it was karaoke, which a couple of songs got sung and then most people left because karaoke is not the thing when you're not drinking. So not many people stayed around for that. But
it's even better. It's even better when you're not drinking because everyone cares more. Whereas when you are drinking, no one cares about how they sound. You really find out the people who really care about what they sound like.
Yeah. Well, me and Amy Cocaine didn't sound good singing Aerosmith, trust me.
Which Aerosmith track?
Don't Want to Miss a Thing. It's a go-to for us, I think.
It's quite a tough. That's a tough. Yeah, but it's a tough song to sing well.
Yeah, I think we got halfway through and it must have been the longest version ever, because then we were like, right, we've had enough now. We're done. We're out. We're cut.
Yeah. The old I don't want to close my eyes bit is hard. Let's do it as a two as well in harmony. It's a tough one. Tough one.
There was no harmonies going on. But yeah, so McKenna one evening finished like our evening meal, and then these balloons showed up at dinner. But it's like the party long ones, so you actually need a proper pump to blow them up. So the girls are like real trying to blow them up. Couldn't get them. Like Claudia nearly passed out, might have passed out from trying so hard. She's a trier, that one. So but yeah, but what I actually learned that night, Ash, our physio, can actually make swords, any kind of animal you ask, hats, all sorts. So I've got her signed up for Oliver's 2nd birthday party.
Nice.
And so it's just a bit of light-hearted fun, a bit different. I think, and that's a really good vibe that we got going on within the group, and probably something that we might have been missing over the last couple of years so much. But McKenna's really bringing it and doing a really good job.
Sarah McKenna's so good at that, isn't she?
Yeah.
If anybody else suggested that we were going to make balloon animals, they'd all just be like, yeah, shut up. But Sarah McKenna has this brilliant way of persuading everyone, and then actually everybody also having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, 100%. Like after the first New Zealand game, it was Halloween, so she ordered face paints. So it was about getting people to do, like obviously I was the first person up and got my face painted. But it's just like stupid things like that. But we got the coaches involved in stuff, and like it's just different, and it's out of people's comfort zone. So yeah, it's good.
What did people draw on Mids' face?
Yeah, I think he was a coach that probably didn't get involved. But Scott Beeman, on the other hand, hey, some things what happens in camp stays in camp, Emily.
Exactly, as it should be.
So the performance on the pitch, is that closely linked to the atmosphere off the pitch?
I think so, but then also I think that actually, like we've got a very young back line, and I think sometimes with when it looks at New Zealand, there's sometimes a bit of a fear factor in that aura of who you're playing, as in the black shirt, instead of actually you're playing the person in the shirt. And I think with the young girls coming into that squad, is actually they got no fear of them. They just want to play rugby, and I think that's what we've seen. And like I think it was a great 2 games. And I think I came off the first game and was like, oh, I didn't really get much ball. And then when I did, I kind of made a mistake. But actually, it was a backs game. Like the tries that were going in were phenomenal, and the things that we're doing. So yeah, like I think real positive. And to get the back-to-back win we did, like last time we did it was I think back in 2012, which me and Emily were a part of, but we were the young guns then, which had no fear against New Zealand. So I think that's a really good thing for us going into this next 12 months.
Do you think that's definitely gone now? Because like it's so easy, isn't it, to say like there's a fear around this black jersey, or there isn't a fear around this black jersey. And some of those girls now, we spoke about it with Miz last week, like got 100% win rate against New Zealand, which I think any rugby player that's able to say that is pretty up there, isn't it? I'd have that at the top of my CV, I think. But do you think like these couple of games have really changed that, even for the old girls? Like some of us we'll definitely have probably a losing ratio against New Zealand, but do you think that's now changed?
I think in people's mindsets, like they're beatable. Like in my position, I am better than that player in that position. But like it's like 2017 World Cup. It's whoever's better on the day, and you've got to make sure you turn up to that. Like we beat them in that summer before that World Cup, and you know, like it was doable, and in our heads we knew we could do it. But on the game, which was obviously the final, like they had the better game than us. But the scoreline, it was a high scoring game. So I just think that we don't take our foot off the gas now. We keep doing what we know we need to do as a squad, and just like know that they're on our shoulder. But actually, like back-to-back wins against them, yeah, it's phenomenal.
Do you feel that, you know, obviously with the professional era for the girls and how that's sort of shaping up in the Allianz Premier 15s, that you've really noticed over those 2 games against the All Blacks, well, the Black Ferns, as it were, that really showed in terms of what you're laying down in terms of Allianz Premier 15s, and where that's allowing you to take your skill sets and how much separation it's giving you between yourselves and the other teams.
Yeah, absolutely, and I just think it just shows with our squad, our strength and our depth. Like we got multiple players in multiple positions. Like, I'm not being funny, it's annoying because I'm sat here doing this with you and I'd rather be getting my 80th cap this weekend. But like, it just shows what the league is doing for us, and we're getting things right. We're not just getting the on-field stuff right, we're getting the off-field stuff right. And I think with the Allianz like Premier 15s, you've got S&C, you've got nutrition, you've got everybody chomping at the bit. They want to be in that Allianz 15s like Premier final, whereas it's not just about playing for England anymore. People want to play for their clubs, and like you're on a big stage when you're playing for your clubs now. It's not just about England, which there was a time in the women's game it probably was. You want like the more like not senior players, but the players that wanted to progress for England. It was all about just England, whereas now it's about you got to play well for your club, perform, and then you'll get picked for England. And I think that it's credit to shows to like people like Maud, Sadia, that are all getting selected now. That actually it's not just about the pathway; it's about the league as well.
I think that's definitely been a change, isn't it? I think previously you would either be in the England squad or you wouldn't, and almost irrelevant those players someone out of that team would then be selected for the England squad. Whereas now I genuinely think certainly some of the players that have come into camp, whether they've got a cap or not, they're the players that have almost been, you're being rewarded for good club stuff, isn't it? And I love that, because then you're picking people on form. You're then, everybody's on their toes. It's, what's happened in the past, or your CV or things you may have achieved is irrelevant. And I do think that should be the way it is, because if you're picking people at their very best, then it should be a great thing.
But you say that as well. But you have the golden riches of picking people like Heather Cowell off the bench, who plays her first cap and plays a bit of a world, isn't she? So
absolutely,
obviously, it's not bad when the players that you're building up behind you that are coming in, and that you talk about the 1s and 2s and 3s in the same position, but they've all got that ability, and that is getting lifted by how good the setup is now in the Allianz Premier 15s, and it's going to be annoying for the older girls as all these young ladies come up, have got all the skills to pay the bills. So you're gonna have to keep on your game, ladies.
I hope you're not casting me and Packer in that other group.
I'm just talking. I'm just talking to a screen. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, but you're dead right. And I think the other really interesting thing is, say someone like Heather Cow, because of how competitive the league is and the standard that she's playing at week in, week out, the people she's playing against, so many other internationals, Scottish, American, Canadian, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so many other internationals in our league that actually, maybe a little bit like what we were talking about with the Black Ferns, there's no fear associated against playing at international rugby, because the league is so strong and the players you play against week in, week out are pretty much nearly all internationals now.
And I think that's where the league is so massive, because everyone wants to come in and play in our league because they know it's so good. So even though you're being competitive at club with English internationals, you're actually being competitive with other internationals from other places. So actually, to be pushed by other internationals like Canadians and Americans, because they're big, and also like Wales as well. Like Georgie Evans, she really pushes us at back row. So me and Victoria at Saracens, Fleeto. I don't know why I called her Victoria, but me and Fleeto. Sorry,
she has a big cool Victoria's primary school.
I'm being all proper today, guys. No, but like what we're getting pushed at club as well, and I think that's only a good thing. We had Sophie de Good from Canada last year over with us, and she's a back row player, but because we needed her, but she got like pushed into the second row. But as long as I'm not the player that starts getting pushed in the second row, I don't mind.
You talk about how important it is to have this domestic league, and we can certainly start seeing the fruits of that now, I think, in how the Red Roses are performing in international rugby. And that has led to a lot of people in New Zealand questioning whether there will be enough domestic action on that side of the world for their players to be able to make up what seems to be quite a big gulf now between that's kind of formed over the last few years. I'm sure COVID also had something to do with it, but you have to look at the impact of the Allianz Premier 15s, on the kind of performances that Northern Hemisphere teams can now put out.
But it just shows, like, I think players that from other countries sacrifice and come over here to play, and me and Scaz, we're really fortunate that England lead the way in professionalism and the league and everything else. But I know if I wanted to go to a World Cup and be the best open side flanker in the world, that I would have to sacrifice some things. And if that meant playing a season in a different country, then maybe that's something that I'd look into. I think for New Zealand, it's there's a lot to work on from now until World Cup. And I know a big thing for them also was that they were so surprised on how big the crowds were, which just shows, like, for me, I'm like, oh, so when we go over to New Zealand, I've been over there and played a couple of times now, the crowds weren't that big, but compared to what a World Cup should be like in my eyes now, is it the right place we should be going to still advertise and get more players to play in the women's game?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I can't remember her name, but someone from New Zealand has come out and said that they want to try and get sort of 40-something thousand at that opening weekend of the Rugby World Cup. I don't know if anyone else has seen that, which I think at Eden Park there's like three back-to-back games or something like that. So
That'd be incredible.
I agree with you, Packer, and I think they understand, whether it be because of what's happened in the autumn and whatnot, but I do also think they understand the opportunity, but also potentially the pressure that they have in order to deliver something that is bigger again, because we're at a stage now with women's rugby where things have to continue to get bigger. Like the World Cup from 2017 and 2014, things continue to hopefully get bigger and better. So there is quite a lot of pressure on them to deliver that. But if any nation can do it, a rugby playing nation like New Zealand, let's hope so.
Fingers crossed.
But I mean, that's going to be a key driver of match attendance during the tournament, is whether New Zealand fans actually think that, you know, their team will be able to be competitive. And so the question is, will they be able to turn it around? Marlie, like how far do they have to kind of go in order to really be competitive at the next World Cup?
I think as a team that I think from playing against them and watching them, that they need to get a bit fitter. But as rugby, like, they're a rugby nation. I don't think it's for me to comment on what they need to get better about in that sense. They'll go away and look at this tour, because they've not only played us, now they've gone over to France and played France, and like we're the top 3-4 teams in the world. I'd say right now, we're the top 3 teams in the world. But I think the off-field stuff, I think like we just need to make sure that when we come to that World Cup, fans will be there. But obviously the coverage, like we've had the BBC, I don't know if I say it, but we've had the BBC Two coverage, which the viewing figures has been massive over the last few weeks, and it's growing each week, which I just think is incredible. But it's on normal TV that anybody can tune into, and I just think that's massive for the women's game, because it might not be something that you would normally sit down and watch, but actually after you've watched it, like I know a lot of people say to me, like they're hooked. Like it's such a good game to watch. Bodies on the line, but also like ball in play time is really high as well, and that's what people want to see.
Just on the New Zealand point, I've absolutely no doubt in my mind that they will be 50 times better than they were in this tour come the World Cup. Like, obviously there's so much was said around them having not played for a long time, and obviously they, you know, that takes its toll, and potentially they, you know, have kind of struggled with lack of time together and things like that. However, they're unbelievable rugby players. They have a brilliant history and tradition around them, and they will be so much better. And I've said this quite a lot, but I also think maybe this tour, and certainly our professionalism, now Wales's professionalism with their contracts, other nations, etc., is just continuing to put pressure on other unions in order for them to either stay with those teams at the top, or, you know, to try and get to a place like that. But people have to do things now in order to, I guess, yeah, like I say, stay with those teams at the top. New Zealand have always traditionally been so good, but I do think we'll now see their union pull their finger out, as it were.
Yeah, look, I think you can't deny what is happening in terms of the women's game, in terms of how it's growing. Obviously, 1 million people watched on BBC this weekend, which is a huge amount of number if you consider only 900,000 watched the Arsenal women versus Spurs women. So, you know, hopefully you guys, and also by winning, that always helps if you're winning games and people want to watch England win. You know, that's going to lift everything in itself, and it's going to lift all the other countries when they see it happening, and you're going to get more people wanting to either come over and play in the islands of 15s, or they're going to go, right, unions are going to say, we need to step up here, otherwise we're going to get smashed at the Rugby World Cup, and that's going to be something that New Zealand are not want to go and see on their home soil. They are a rugby mad nation. They will want to sort that out, and they will want to fill those stands, and they want to make it the best World Cup ever, because they consider themselves the place to be to watch good rugby. So I think it all bodes well for the ball of women's rugby. Really is just started down that big hill where it can take us. Hopefully it's bigger, better, more player pool, better nations, and the product just gets better and better as it goes.
I think what I also really love about this, and this is often the aspect of the advancement of women's sport on TV that most people who are watching don't realize. When I started out in TV 7 million years ago, there were no women in technical roles. No one was handling a camera or doing the VT work, certainly not in South Africa, but also in other parts of the world. I think the first time I saw a woman camera operator was in New Zealand in 2011, and actually a woman directing rugby as well. But this is still an area in which we're seeing huge growth. So over the weekend, you mentioned that 1 million people were watching. 2/3 of the VT operators on that Red Roses game were women. The 2 lead camera operators at the Arsenal Spurs women match that was on BBC One were also women. And so there's also with the growth that we're seeing, people actually watching women's sport. If you're one of those people who watched, you were also watching women behind, the scenes, getting opportunities to work in spaces that have predominantly been, male territory. And so the profile that the game is bringing to the role of women in society the benefits are far-reaching. And amazing to see, the progress made behind the scenes, which I'm absolutely loving. Sorry, I just had to give a punt to that because I think that it's honestly, it's one of those things that you become so used to that when it changes, you're like, oh, this is actually really refreshing. Look at that. There's 2 women, running the 2 lead cameras on a match.
It's also something that we would never be aware of. Because, I was obviously at the game and you did see women behind the cameras, but I suppose in a really good way, I didn't bat an eyelid because it's not something that I've grown up knowing. Obviously, you're in the industry far more. So, but yeah, no, it's awesome to know, to be honest.
And you've obviously experienced it from a broadcasting perspective. So I think that's also really, really cool to see, when players are not actually playing like you. Actually involving that voice, a very current voice, a very, immediate perspective, people who know exactly what it's like being in that camp right now and understanding the structure really well. It just makes it so much more interesting from a viewing perspective. But let's talk about what happened on the pitch just a little bit, Marlie, because you've got such a great story and I still want to get into that for anyone who hasn't heard you talk about your journey. But the actual rugby on the pitch, what has been the secret to the Red Roses' success? Sorry, I mixed up the 2 there.
I think Warwick's success is that we've had a new S&C come in last year, and he's very much changed the way we train, our mindset of how we do things and when we do it. So on our fast days, we do things really fast. And then on our lower level days, then actually it's a lot more relaxed in training. But it's about learning and making sure we're learning fast instead of just running fast. But we do a PPP session usually on a Wednesday, but it's changed to a Thursday just because of how our games are falling on Sundays. And that's an intense session, to be fair. It's full contact. And it's just about playing under match test conditions. So, when we talk about ball in play, usually if we kick the ball, it goes out, it'd be a line out, and we play from there, or a knock on scrum. But this kind of game, you don't have that kind of stuff. We go, right, it's a free kick from there. So you're constantly going. So you're playing at that match intensity. And I think anybody that's new that comes into camp learns pretty quickly that is it's the toughest session of the week. And for the older girls, it's about getting through that session and making sure you're nailing it. But actually, for me, it's probably actually one of my favourite sessions because it's short, it's sharp. It's like playing that's what I love doing. I love playing rugby before anything else. I just want to play rugby. So it's actually I get to do that midweek,
and you get to whack people.
Yeah, basically. And then your day's done. So it's a morning session, so you get the afternoon to yourself after that. So actually, I just think those little bits in camp at the moment is what's making us perform as well as what we are on the pitch. I think it's quite it would have been really good to have actually played France in this autumn international series, just to see where we're really at. I know we'll get the opportunity in Six Nations, hopefully, and then obviously them being in our pool. But I think playing the likes of Canada, New Zealand, it would have been really good for us to play France as well, because the way they played against New Zealand, it was pretty awesome, to be fair. So it'd be nice to see how we front up against them.
I really loved the way some of the forwards have stood up. I guess the different challenge being posed by Canada in this most recent match helps with that. Just kind of testing you in different areas. Sarah Byrne, massive performance. The young guns in the team, how are they fitting in, particularly during the forwards?
I think the young guns really well. They're coming into and they're attacking like the week, like full ahead. It's not just about turning up on the Sunday and playing. It's all the other little bits. It's the learning. Like when I said, it's about learning fast, like the line outs, like how we do things, and just being a Red Rose in general. And I think that they've all done that really well. Like Sarah Byrne, she's been around for a long time now, to be fair, in my eyes. She's not a young gun anymore, even though she is still really young. But she had a great performance, and I think she's someone that's really stood up and took leadership in this last probably season and a half around the scrum area. She's still learning her trade, but when she is learning, she's going away, obviously, with Bristol Bears. They're having a phenomenal season, coming back into camp and sharing what she's learned from there and bringing it to the girls, and in always wanting the best from herself and pushing herself and actually doing that from the rest. And she leads from the front, and then I think you're going into the second rows, and you've got Abby Ward and Zoe Allcroft in there at the moment, and both of them phenomenal. They're both very two different characters, but then at the same time they're both phenomenal rugby players. In the knowledge Abby Ward has over the line out blows my mind. But in sometimes, like, I ask her stupid questions because I'm the person that asks the stupid questions, and her face is quite pan, and I'm like, oh, should I have asked that? Oh, it's just Abby Ward. But I think like that's like, you can see how we are functioning together as a group just from how our line-outs were against New Zealand, and then also against Canada. Canada posed different threats, different pitches for us, but actually we dealt with that really well. We knew with New Zealand we needed to make sure that we brought tempo to the game. So tempo was, you've seen our hookers run into the ball person to get the ball, and I think like 8-second line-outs, even faster than that in some of them. That was what we did. We still went for the same kind of tactic against Canada, but we knew with Canada we weren't, as much as we made them run and not think about things, they were still going to have it in their legs to keep going because they're a naturally fit team, and we've always known this about Canada. So actually it was about them being smart about what we did and where we did it. And then obviously to like the back row, Poppy at the moment can do no wrong. She's on fire. So I think with that, she's had another good series. Sarah Hunter, she does all the unseen work, not just on the pitch but off the pitch as well. And I think people can forget just how much work it is not to just be a Red Rose, but be a captain of the Red Roses. That there's a lot that falls on your shoulders, and she's just phenomenal at what she does. And then Sadia putting the pressure on me at the moment, and that's what like I do love it, because it only makes me want to be better for myself. But she's come from a school in Crystal Palace where Bryony Clear was her teacher, Poppy was her coach, and I went in and did some guest sessions. So to come from that, and then now actually it's
payback, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's payback. Now she's coming for your job.
Yeah, no, she's coming for my job. but I just think it's just incredible to see them coming up through. And to me, it's a whole different generation, because how they are on their phones and social media and stuff like that, it goes over my head. But rugby ability, like she's gonna be incredible. The tackle she puts in these PPP sessions and how she played at the weekend. She's got a big career in front of her, and it's one that actually I might have played a small part in. I'll give it to Bryony. Bryony played the big
Claim
part.
it. Claim it.
but like, and I just think that's just how the group is at the moment. Everyone wants the best for everyone, and I just think it just shows that it's not about the player, it's about the team and the squad.
I really love that. I think it's great, and it sounds, it sounds like a really interesting place to kind of really grow in and learn. Zoe Harrison, of course, you and her go way back, Sari's teammates. When did you guys first start playing together? Just kind of give us, the Marlie Packer take on the Zoe Harrison we might not know. She's just been absolutely box office.
Yeah, she has, and she does it week in, week out for Saracens, and she puts us in really good areas that then we can play for at Saracens, because sometimes we give a few too many penalties away, so she gets us back up the pitch. But no, so I moved to Saracens back in 2017 after the World Cup, and so we were a young whippersnapper there. She was one real young, the likes of Hannah Bottoman, Helena Roland, sorry, just speaking second name. So they were all there at Saracens when we joined, really young, but actually a little bit like they got no fear, that they just wanted to play rugby and have fun. And I think in that season, the autumn internationals, Zoe and Hannah Bottoman got capped in that autumn, and they've kind of just grown from there, really, from strength to strength. I think Zoe had a couple of setbacks with selection and a few little niggles with a quad, but actually I think sometimes she's probably in the shadow of Katie a bit, and now actually with Katie gone, it's opened up that competition for her and Helena to really fight for that 10 shirt, and I think Zoe has done really well in that, and she's someone that is always at training at skills, doing her kicking. We're always telling her she's not very good at it, but yeah, she's great. But like, she's always working hard, and so everything she's getting over this autumn is just credit for all the hard work she puts in.
Is it? Do you have the usual 10-7 relationship where the 10 says to, I'm not going to make any tackles, so as long as I'm just going to leave everything on my inside and you sweep it up? Is that? It seems to be the relationship of every 7 and 10.
Yeah, really. No, we talk. She's quite good at talking, but so we don't mind putting a tackle in. I'd say back in 2017-18, she probably wasn't that, but she learned very quickly that actually, if she wants to go far at being a 10, she needs to learn to tackle as well as kick and pass.
No. You just need to have the ability to point at the person and go, yours, and just keep moving. That's all you need to do with a 7 like you inside.
True. But, occasionally she needs to make that 1 or 2 tackles.
So you are in a really interesting position because you've played through so many phases of women's rugby, and you can kind of really now stand at this point where you have teammates coming in and taking jerseys off people that you remember coaching, and that have learned from you guys, which is so beautiful. Looking back now on 2014, not having had professional contracts at that stage, people were teachers and vets and police officers and plumbers, and I mean, does it now feel like a lifetime ago, like a different world entirely, or does it feel like just yesterday?
I think for me, I don't think a lifetime ago it feels like, because I feel like it's probably running up that I'm going to have to go back to work soon with Sadia coming in. So, but I feel like how the game has grown is just incredible. And I probably thought back then I'd never get a professional contract where I would just be able to play rugby and not have to worry about anything else. But in the years, that's proven that I've been able to be lucky enough to pick up that. But I also feel very fortunate that I come from an era where I had to learn, I have a job or a trade or something to then do alongside my rugby. So sometimes you hear other players from other nations saying, well, you guys are lucky, like you don't have to go work and go gym at 6 a.m, then finish work and then go training. But I'm a player, I did used to have to do that. I know what you feel like, and I feel for you still having to do that, but not my problem. You know, in the nicest possible way. Like I've done that, and I just try. Remember, like I speak to younger generations coming through that have been picked up either before uni or around that area, that they come straight into professional contracts. Is just make sure that actually, like, you're using your free time to make sure you're upskilling yourself. Whereas if that's doing an online course or just making sure that, like, rugby's not forever, and only so many of, like, lucky people can go into punditry or TV and stuff like that. But otherwise, actually making sure that you've got a job or something that you've got for after rugby, and even while rugby's going on, because sometimes, like, you can get into this little bubble and not have very much outside it, and it's nice to step away from that. And it's really easy for me to step away from it now because I come home and I've got Oliver, so that's amazing. But even before then, it's just making sure that you have different things going on other than in rugby, mainly for just your headspace as well.
I agree. I massively agree, and I think it makes us so much more grateful as well for kind of the position that we're in now. And I suppose it's always a constant battle trying to toe the line between being really grateful for what you have and striving for more in this kind of ever-changing world of women's rugby. But yeah, I 100% agree. Do you think will you go back to plumbing when you're done?
I think so. Yeah, no, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do when I'm done, but I think hands-on, something like that. I can't see me having a desk job, let's be honest.
Nor me, mate.
But something like that. I'd like to go into property development or something, but yeah.
Coaching?
We'll see. Coaching, yeah. So I've got my level 2 coaching. I've done some coaching with Essex under 18s, which I actually really enjoyed doing it. COVID kind of put a stop to that, but we're looking to basically they've been training like on a Saturday once a month at the moment, just to keep the girls ticking through. But because of how my games have fallen, or I've been in camp, I've not been able to pick up on that again. But yeah, that's something I'm definitely looking into. Also, like, I'm settled now where I'm living, so actually I can look for local clubs around, and I know Basingstoke's just down the road, so I'm pretty sure they'd love to have me at some point. I've spoken to someone about it, so we'll see what the future holds in that one.
That's really exciting. Marlie Packer, might just be the person coaching the next generation of superstars. And I guess it does, I'm sure it translates when you can speak of the highs and lows in professional rugby from first-hand experience. I mean, you've won a World Cup, you've had the really harsh reality of getting to a final and then losing it, and learning how to process kind of both sides of that. There's not many people who has the rugby CV that you guys do, both Emily and Marlie. And I do sometimes wonder how far off we are from seeing a woman coaching a men's team, even a club side or at international level.
There's people out there that do it, don't they? Rocky used to coach a men's side. I can't remember the
Chesham,
yeah. That was it. To what level, I suppose, is the question, isn't it? But Giselle Mather, one of our old coaches, she used to coach the London Irish Academy and stuff. So I think like, my frustration often is that we just need to let it happen. Like, if the women's coaches are phenomenal coaches at the moment, and I suppose they're largely in the women's game, but at some point it will happen.
It's also, sorry, Emily, it's a building process that the professional era is going to take you through as it grows. It's as slow moving as it might be. It's going to be a sort of generational churn thing, isn't it? And that's going to be the more high elite players that are going to come through the Red Roses now, and the more they want to actually get into there, then the more money that comes into that generates more people, and it's just the biggest deal is been getting this cog rolling and rolling properly. And I think the best thing about where the game is now is it is properly going. I've always compared it to, you look at American sports, whether it's a man's game or a woman's game, everyone's always been involved. So if it's a collegiate game, everyone goes and watches all their sport. So then people, both men and women from both sides are encouraged to be involved, whether it be, you talked about TV, talk about, in the band in America, or tailgating, or it becomes that then everyone knows about the sport and everyone wants to be involved, and sport becomes a massive part of their lives. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing of what I think the Red Roses have started, is it's very out there for young women to see that, there's a great sport to play, but if you don't want a sport, there's roles around it that you can get involved in, refereeing being one of them, or whatever. And then as that grows, it's going to transcend to other sports, and it's going to transcend to other areas in everyday life, and that can only be we talk about diversity, and that can only be the true way of doing it. It's going to be, unfortunately, it just doesn't happen overnight.
No, but progress is being made, and we can see it in front of our eyes. Marlie, you've spoken about the fact that you really want Oliver, your son, to see you play, to actually be there and witness, big moments for you on the pitch. I loved, and I think the camera was on the two of you. Was it after the first test? And he looked a little less interested in being there, but he's still so small at the moment. And that is a big driver for you, having him stand witness to your career?
Yeah, massively. And I think for me, like he didn't make it to the first New Zealand game. It was at Northampton he came to, just because it was just a little bit too far for him to travel and then keep him entertained while the game was going on, because he don't quite understand it just yet. But after the game, it's really hard because we've also got COVID protocols still in place. So I wasn't we were told we weren't allowed to touch but it was just so hard. I just did in the end. But actually, that's probably why I'm not in this week. No, I'm joking.
Bubble breach.
But it was actually really emotional, because I obviously haven't seen Oliver or Tash for 2 weeks prior into that. And can you hear him now? He's chatting up there. So I hadn't seen him for 2 weeks, and then to see him, and then we had all these fans around, and then Tash was holding Oliver, and I was like, come to the front, and then he was there, and it was a bit of an emotional minute, and then I didn't know whether I could just grab him, and I was like, let him walk to me a bit, and then I picked him up and took him back and gave him a cuddle, so it was nice. But yeah, I feel like it, for me, 12 months to the next World Cup, I want to stay at the top of my game, and I want Oliver to be able to understand it a little bit, to be like, that's my mummy there, or whatever he wants to say or do, but just for him to understand him, because I feel like my career is I've always done everything for myself, as in rugby came first, nothing came before that, and rugby still does come first, but obviously when you have a child, perspective on life, perspective on things change a lot. So actually I want him to be able to enjoy and love what I've loved for so many years, I guess.
Obviously you've got a chance of equaling the best record this weekend for the Red Roses. Does that bear it in terms of 18 straight wins? Has that been brought up, or has that been talked about, in the fact that you 2 more wins and you are officially the best rugby team that we've had in terms of straight wins? Has that been talked about, or is that put to the back and it's just next job?
It hadn't been spoken about until the Canada game, and the camp, the mood was quite relaxed running into, especially into the first week of the New Zealand game. It was very relaxed, which is from our staff and team. Sometimes everyone was a bit like, "Ooh, people are relaxed anyway. Okay, we like this. This is a nice vibe. We're going into this." And then New Zealand got up a little bit more, but for the Canada game, it wasn't so relaxed. And then just before we had a team meeting, and it had some numbers up, 16. And he was like, Mids was like, does anyone know what this means? And Amy Cocaine goes, how many games unbeaten? And then the numbers rolled off, and it just said where we sat and stuff. So we hadn't really thought about it. Maybe the coaching staff have thought about it, but as players, probably it hadn't been brought to our attention until last week. And I think now it's something that has been brought to our attention. It's something that we want to make sure we nail. And I think this weekend will take us into equaling our win rate, and then it'll be Six Nations that will hopefully overtake it. Fingers crossed.
She's making history.
It wasn't, but it definitely is up in the forefront now. Yeah, and I think that's definitely as we play at the moment, and the squad is, we want to keep making history, and that's over this next season, not just with numbers. Let's make sure we get that, keep ticking up right up to World Cup.
Wow, history and legacy, and I mean, parenting is all rolled up into that, because you're both building this, professional legacy that you want to lead and be part of something, this very special period in women's rugby. And you speak about kind of balancing that with parenting. Talk to me about the decision to become parents right, over the last year or two, considering where you were in your career and what your kind of trepidation was like. Because even as someone who doesn't need to be fit for a living, it is something that people in my industry often talk about, is trying to time when to have children just right, so that there's, your boss isn't freaked out by it. And I mean, I'm sure that's an even more precarious conversation to have when you're a pro player.
It was a bit of a bit nervy telling my coach, and it shouldn't have been at the time. I think there was a couple of things, because I was also injured at the time, so I'd gone away for a little 4-day break in Lanzarote, and COVID hit. So I need to tell my coach that I was my partner was pregnant, but also that I'm stuck in Lanzarote at the moment. So but to be fair, when I told Mids, he was really happy for me, like congratulated me, and to be fair, he didn't even know I was away on holiday, so it was the right result. So it was fine. No, I was nervous about it, and I shouldn't have been nervous about it, because it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't be something that to be worried about, and especially now looking back at the time. But for me as a player, I'm quite a worrier, and then with that have an effect on, does he think that I'm still 100% into my rugby? Am I doing all the right things? We talk about, as a Red Rose, about what you do in the other 21 hours of your day. I like to think sleeping, but actually I worried that like they would be worried about that. Am I doing the right things to be the ultimate, the best version of myself and the best version of the Red Rose that I am? So, but actually it was all stuff I really didn't really need to worry about, and actually just enjoy the moment. So yeah, no, it went down fine. And then after that, yeah, they've been really good. Like I said, I was coming back from injury at the time, and then COVID hit. So I'd had an ankle reconstruction basically. And so all my rehab was done through FaceTime in my back garden, or I can remember doing a return to like running drills with a band, and Tash was pregnant holding this band / pulling me back. So we've got some memorable times of that summer, which it's great memories. And I think I made it back for the next international game that was played, and I had a little boy at home. So yeah, no, it's an incredible time.
I was going to say, what always makes me laugh, obviously yourself and obviously Katie when she was around, is that obviously coming into camp with a little one is heartbreaking and so hard, but actually you also kind of look forward to it because you know you're going to sleep. Like Katie was literally like, this is like a spa retreat, I can't wait for bed. Like I obviously roomed with her and we were like in bed by like 9 o'clock. I was like, what is going on? And she's just desperate for the sleep.
Yeah. No, to be fair, Oliver is actually not a terrible sleeper, but he is constant. So it's like, it's not, I wouldn't say a retreat because Bishop Abbey's not a retreat, but
yeah, fair.
But it's not like, it is really sad you leave, but once you're in camp, you're in camp mode. And I think for me, actually, not the hardest thing, but when you're in camp and you've got a significant other half at home, like you speak on the phone in the evenings and you offload from things that are happening in camp and stuff like that. Whereas I think since we've had Oliver, that chance to speak is very minimal now, because it's either bath time or I'm in a meeting and Oliver's in bed, so Tash wants some time to herself. So it's readjusting to things like that actually like life is in full swing at home when I'm in camp. It's not, oh, I can just pick up the phone and expect to speak to Tash and tell her about my day. It's actually I hear about their day, or in like the greatest thing, we have FaceTime now, but I love seeing Oliver on FaceTime, but it's not like you can have a chit chat with him or anything. So I'm like, oh, you're playing with your blocks, Oliver. That's cute. So it's really nice, don't get me wrong, but it's also really hard as well. So just making sure that we get the balance right for both of us, because like there's nothing worse than Tash putting Oliver to bed and then me ringing up and trying to deload my day to her. So it's just getting that balance right.
Yeah. And so we all learn more and more about balance. Some people have a lot more to balance, and it puts certainly what I'm balancing in perspective. Thank you so much, Marlie Packer, for joining us on the Scaz and the Rugby. We'll definitely have to have you back, because there's so much more that I still feel we need to get to. But I do feel like the fact that you were released to be sent home for a few days, and the fact that you were willing to give us an hour out of that time was just an absolute score. Thank you.
No worries at all. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for the invite, guys.
That's it for this week's edition of The Good, The Scaz and The Rugby from all of us. So goodbye. See you next week.